Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Psychic Wives. I am Jerry Carabin.
And I'm Ginger Hendry.
It's funny, I almost said I'm Ginger Hendry. Why? But anyway, so today we're going to talk about that word that nobody wants to talk about. We're going to talk about meditation. Now, before you all go, no meditation. We want to talk about the different types of meditation, because I think, Ginger, you probably agree with me. This comes up in some of my readings when I'll be, talking to someone and it'll come up for them that they need to spend time meditating or something like that. And everybody's like, ugh. And I have to explain to them, meditation can be a lot of different things.
Yes.
Yes, meditation, it is sitting down, with your legs crossed and your hands in a mudra with your eyes closed and a candle lit, saying a mantra. There is absolutely that type of meditation. But the point of meditation is to release as much thought as you possibly can, to release thought. Now, a lot of people are like, well, meditation is to get rid of all thought.
Right.
But it's impossible to get rid of all thought, because if you're getting rid of all thought, you're thinking about getting rid of all thought.
Well, here's interesting. Yesterday I read somebody, and I don't remember, it was probably on social media somewhere, but somebody made this same comment and said, that people say I'm worried because thoughts are coming in. And they said, well, here's the announcement. Thoughts are coming in because you're alive. When thoughts aren't coming in anymore, you're not here. So you should be grateful.
Exactly. Grateful that thoughts are coming in. Right. So it's more about quieting the mind. Okay. So yes, there is that type of meditation where I'm sitting there and I've got my eyes closed, or sometimes my eyes are open and I'm focusing on a candle or something like that. And I'll be just saying a mantra or something, and a thought will come in. Many people, trying meditation are like, oh crap, a thought came in, shoot, I'm doing it wrong, like this. Well, a thought comes in and you just say, okay, I'm just going to not think about that.
Yep.
And then you go back and I'm not just going to not think about that. You're always going to have thought coming in. So what we want to kind of talk about today are different ways that you can find that place, that peace, that relaxation that is meditative. Does that make sense the way I said that?
Yeah, it definitely does, because you're right. Really, what you're trying to do is quiet the mind, and when you quiet the mind, you're quieting the body. You're lowering your blood pressure. You're lowering your rate of breathing. You're in sort of a different state, and it doesn't mean that you still don't have thoughts, because they are still going to come in. You just don't attach to them. You let them go by.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Meditation can be actually focusing on just one thing. So we're going to start to give you some examples of ways that you can meditate, and I'm using air quotes, and we will be on YouTube, so you can see the air quotes, but those of you listening on Apple or Spotify or whatever aren't seeing the air quotes. So these, to me, are forms of meditation. So I'm going to start with like moving meditations or yoga. Okay. So I was a registered yoga teacher. I used to teach yoga. Yoga to me is a very meditative thing, because it's very difficult to do yoga while you're saying, oh, wait, did I empty the dishwasher? Because you're going to fall. Probably. There are some things you're in a thing and you're focusing on, okay, bring my right shoulder back, bring my right hip back. Where's my hand? Where's my foot? I've got to be so you're thinking about that one thing. And at the same time, your body is stretching. So there's endorphins and all that good stuff going on. So that's a great example of, I'm doing a yoga practice for an hour and I'm only thinking about that yoga practice, as opposed to, like I said, the dishwasher or the bills I have to pay later or something like that. Because as soon as you start doing that, you're going to find you start to wobble or something in your practice, and then it brings you back to the practice. So it's very similar. So if you're sitting there doing regular meditation, I'm going to sit here and say that this mantra, oh, a thought came in, and just going to push it away. So does everybody see, I'm asking for yes or no when I'm sitting here looking at you. Do you see how that could be, you're in a yoga pose, you're trying to hold that pose, you're thinking about your body and how it feels and what needs to move. If you start thinking about the dishwasher, you're going to start to wobble. That's what happens. So yoga can be a great meditation. Stuff like Tai Chi. Now I don't do Tai Chi. I've always seen it and it looks so cool. But Tai Chi is like you're really focusing on, okay, right, my right hand is moving forward and now it's moving back and I'm stepping back. Like there's a very specific movement to it that you have to be focusing on. If you start to focus on something else, you're going to be like, oh, wait, where am I? Kind of thing. Right?
Yeah,
What
I
are
think
the,
for a lot of people, movement is the key. You know, we have a lot of people with itchy legs.
yeah,
You know what I mean? That really can get anxious to sit in one spot. So I think something like yoga or Tai Chi, and we'll talk about other ones as well, you know, in exercise are good for those people that don't do well sitting still.
don't do well sitting. Which also brings up, I've talked to people before, like, so Ginger and I both do intuitive coaching sessions where it's just the human. Yes, we do animal communication, but we do just the intuitive coaching sessions where it's just with the human and what's coming on. And a lot of times, like I said before, that's when I will get oh, you need to spend time in some sort of meditative place or a zone. But a lot of times I'll get that, oh no, this person is not going to be the one that's going to be able to sit and do this. So I'll be led to say nature, walking or whatever. Ginger, I know you do a ton of walking
I
outside.
do a ton of walking, and for me, and the nature piece for me is really important because I feel the best when I'm outside,
Mm,
in general. And
yeah.
so if I'm anxious or if I'm worried or if I want to be in that meditative space, then I am walking. For me, that's my thing. But you can meditate that way. I've heard from walking by counting your steps, if that's it,
Mm,
or being mindful, visually mindful of where you are. You know, I can hear the birds, I can see the beautiful colors, I feel the breeze. You know, you're very mindful of where you are in the moment. And I've heard a lot of runners, and it's the repetitive hitting the foot on the ground, you know, keeping them mindful in that space as well,
yeah.
because it works for them to be moving.
Being
So
mo- And that makes sense to me, like the nature thing. Because I know people are going to say like, oh my God, but yeah, you're outside and you're taking a walk and you're still thinking about the dishwasher or whatever. But what I find when I'm outside, like I live at the beach and I will go for long walks on the beach. And yes, I may start out that way. Like when I'm walking on the beach, I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that, or oh, I have to do that, or whatever. But then it's almost, I'm with you about the nature thing, Ginger. It's almost like it just happens where you're like, oh, feel that sun. Oh,
yeah.
listen to that wave. Oh, look at that bird. Oh, that it's almost like when you're in nature, you can't, it like automatically happens to me
It
or something.
automatically happens to me too, and there's just this sense for me of gratefulness, always gratitude when I'm outside. It's like, how lucky am I can feel the wind.
Yeah,
You know, I can see the sun, it's lifting me up. I mean,
yeah,
for me, that's my spot. You know, for somebody else, maybe being outside isn't the thing. Maybe it is the running or the
right.
movement, as opposed to the nature piece. So, you know, when we're covering all of these things, what we're really saying is there are different practices for different people in different ways.
And
You
it's
can still reach,
okay.
yeah,
And it's okay for you to find your thing. And I like what you just said about the nature. And that's what happens to me, I guess, on the beach is it's just like you start to, um, it's not so much that you release thoughts when it's that kind of walking meditation in nature or beach or something. It's that the thoughts that are coming in are like good thoughts. So I may start, here's an example. I may start that beach walk and I may be like, oh, I forgot to do this, or I got to remember to go home and do this, or I got to that meeting tomorrow, or I've got whatever. But then once you're walking, you're like listening to the wave and listening to the birds and feeling the water on your feet or the sand on your feet or whatever. And it shifts your thoughts to how awesome is this?
yes,
You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I feel that sun, or I feel this is amazing. So it's shifting your thoughts, and that's okay. if you don't have, so in other words, I think one of the big pieces we're saying is don't go into meditation thinking I have to have as little thought as possible. Yes, that's some forms of meditation, but it's okay if you have meditation that's just shifting your thought
Right.
into positive things. It also made me, what you just said before about the sound thing, there is something called sound meditation where, and I don't know if it's sound meditation, a friend of mine, my Reiki master told me it's either sound or conscious something, but you're just focusing on the here and the now. So in other words, when you're in nature, what you just said, Ginger, like, oh, I can hear the crunch under my feet as I walk on leaves or whatever. I can hear that squirrel chirping. Now I hear the wind rustling the leaves. Now I hear a bird. Now I hear a deer moving through whatever. So if you just go from sound to sound to sound, you're in the present and you're focused on that one thing. Now I understand I'm saying the squirrel, the blah, 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 but you're focused on one thing at a time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what it is, a focusing on one thing at a time, or a shifting from negative to positive.
Right.
Okay. What other forms of, and it can be everyday things.
Yes.
Gardening. I'm not a gardener, but you hear people that are gardening that they're like,
In the zone.
oh my God, they're in the zone. And there's that nature thing again, their hands are in dirt.
Right.
You know, in shaman school, we call that, you know, Pachamama is the Mother Earth.
Yep.
Your hands are in that dirt in nature. And there are people that can sit there and plant bulbs for 3 hours.
Right.
That's their zone. That's what works for them.
I'll tell you one thing that this was several years ago, that I took up knitting. And I'm
Mm.
not a crafter. I'm not a very crafty person, but my sister wanted to go and I went to support her. She ended up leaving. I ended up staying for years. I did this knitting group. And at the beginning, it wasn't pretty because I didn't know what I was doing. So it was very aggravating. And one time I remember my husband saying, I thought this was supposed to be relaxing. And
Right.
because I couldn't get the stitches or whatever. But once I really learned to knit, the one thing that I almost, if I was anxious or I had a rough day or whatever, where you might think, oh, I'm going to go home and have a glass of wine, I would be like, where's my knitting?
Yeah.
And for me, baby blankets, only because this one particular pattern that I have that I've done a whole bunch of baby blankets on was counting, let's say, I don't remember what the exact pattern was, but 10 knits to 2 pearls to 10
Right.
knits. You're counting and
Yes.
your hands are moving and my eyes are engaged and I don't really hear
Yeah.
anything that goes on outside and it's very calming. So a craft, knitting,
Craft.
crocheting, painting.
Crocheting. I used to crochet and it wasn't like, I'm not like great at it, so I can make these like elaborate kind of things. And I purposely didn't create elaborate kind of things because then it was like, okay, wait, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And that could cause me personally to overthink. Like for you, it was like counting, whatever. For me, that was like almost irritating. Well, like you said in the beginning, frustrating. But what I would do is there's a lot of hospitals that will give you the dimensions of blankets for their like NICU units,
Yeah.
or, so I would just have the dimensions and I would literally just do the same stitch back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth till I had that thing. But there was counting, but it was like, okay, I need to go 32 across,
Right.
32 across, 32 across, you know what I mean? So you're focusing on that one thing. One of the other reasons that was good for me is you had mentioned like not restless leg, but you got to be moving.
Right.
To me, the hands constantly doing this thing.
Yes.
I tend to be, I'm twitchy. You know what I mean? I'm twitchy. I'm always moving. Do you know what I mean? So that kind of takes up that thing. Do you know what I mean? So the counting plus the hand. I'll tell you, and then I want to go back to this counting thing. I don't know if I found this months ago, like online somewhere, and it's called like diamond art or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, that looks so cool. That looks like I would be like totally in the zone, totally in the zone. And then I went to get a pedicure, and she had on her wall a piece of diamond art that was in the shape of an Om. yoga, whatever. And I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. I was looking into that. And she said, it is one of the most Zen things you will ever do. And I have since bought this thing. And all it is a kind of like a canvas.
Yep.
And it's got a painting on it. So think of paint by numbers.
Yep.
Okay. But where the numbers or letters are, you have these tiny little plastic, like they look like diamonds, but they're plastic. They're obviously not real diamonds. And then you have this little tool that you pick up this tiny little diamond that's the color of 1, and you put it in the 1. Pick up another, put it in another, pick up another, put it in another. And it seems absolutely ridiculous, but I'll be doing that and I'll look up, it'll be 3 hours later.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not thinking about other things, because things will come in, but to me, it's more of, you have to pay attention to what you're doing. So you're not in an agitated, you can't think of agitating things
No, you're more mindful of being in that exact moment.
in that exact moment.
Right.
So I hope you're all getting that, a lot of different things can be meditative, and meditation is so good for us, but we don't want you to think that that piece is you have to sit there, saying Om for a half an hour. Ginger, go back to the counting thing, because that's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah. So for me, for counting was the knitting piece works really well for me. And it's not that I have to keep track of the counting. I mean, I am, but I'm not, that's not, it's the repetitive of saying I'm doing one,
Yeah.
10, 2, 10, 2. So I'm
Yeah.
focused on that and my hands are moving. So I'm not really thinking about it. But we talked a little bit about, we talking about the breathing for, I mean,
Breathing to counting and stuff, because I know you said that you.
I did years ago. I was telling Jerry, I did a 10-week meditation course through, I think it was Deaconess Hospital in Boston. And so every week, and for 10 weeks, we did a different type of meditation. And so one of the ones that I was struggling with was, we'll talk about TM, but I mean, it falls under TM. And that was, like breathing and then repeating a mantra or a word or a phrase or whatever. And I struggled with it just for what we're talking about, because I had like monkey mind.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, oh my God, my thoughts were racing, and then it would make me anxious and, blah, blah. And what I found ended up helping me with that was, rather than a phrase or a word or whatever, I would count. And so I would take a breath in to the count of 4. And then I would hold it for 4, and then I would count back from 4. And that was my breathing. And it was easier for me than thinking of a word or a phrase, or I don't know why.
Right.
It seemed more practical for some reason, and it worked for me. And I still do that. If I'm going to meditate that way, I do the counting, and maybe just because I'm used to it, but it brings me quickly
Yeah.
where I need to go. But it was a while before I could not feel anxious about all my thoughts, because they were all over the place,
Yeah. The counting thing is really huge. And the counting, I recently was taking classes, psychic detective classes, very similar to, we do animal communication, we do intuitive, whatever. You have to get yourself kind of in the zone, and you have to kind of like release any weird energy that's coming up. You have to like kind of take control of your energy and get to a very clear spot. So one of the things that my teacher told me then was, and this works for me, but it doesn't work for me. So it's not always my go-to, but it can work for people. Again, all about finding what works for you. So you would breathe into the count of 1, and then breathe out to the count of 1, and then breathe in for 2, and breathe out for 2. And you do all that all the way up to 9. And then you breathe in for 9, breathe out for 9, breathe in for 8, breathe out for 8, breathe in for 7, breathe out for 7. So you go all the way up and then all the way down. And one of the things she said, you're in the zone when you lose track of the counting, because then you're kind of just like deep into the breathing, and you're just in and out. And I will do that. Sometimes it'll work, and I'll all of a sudden find I'm on like 18. Like I didn't stop when I got to 9. I didn't turn around and come back the other way. So that's something good. When I was in shaman school, there was breathing exercises every morning. So breathing is a huge part of well, I'm going to say it's a huge part of all meditation.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're doing your mantra as you breathe in or breathe out, or whether you're, um, uh, you know, doing the counting thing, we would have breath exercises, and a lot of it was same with what you said. You'd breathe in for like 4, and then hold for 4, and then breathe out for 4. What it is it's like telling your mind, hey, you have to pay attention to what you're doing here. You have to be present. You have to be here. So if a thought comes in, it's going to screw you up. So just push the thought away and bring it back to that thing. Breathing, huge, huge, huge. Even when you're out in nature, you're breathing. When we just talked about yoga, one of the first things that you learn and have to practice as yoga is a very specific breath. It's called Ujjayi breath. You have to breathe in yoga. And as you start to get into them, that's the first thing to go is your breath. Because then you start to like, you got to bring it back to the breath, bring it back to the breath. I want to talk about my experience with TM. TM is transcendental meditation. And you usually are trained in it, and they give you a mantra. And the mantra is not like, I am enough, I am enough. It's not that. It's a nonsensical sound. Because if you give yourself a mantra that's like something like that, I am enough, or I am love, or I don't know, whatever your mantra is, as humans, I think we kind of get attached to that mantra. So I was saying this to Ginger before, like, suppose your mantra is, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough. And then somewhere in there, you may be like, but am I? Am I really enough? Is there something else? Do you know what I mean? So now you're off on this whole other thing. The other thing that I thought was cool about TM is the way my instructors taught me is like, okay, so here you are sending your mantra, saying your mantra, saying your mantra. This may help with people that do that, sit down and try to meditate in the quiet. So something comes up and you release it. We as humans tend to look at ourselves like, oh God, I got monkey mind and I can't release that. If we can kind of shift the focus and, oh, there's that thing. Oh, thank goodness I'm letting it go. So it's almost like a pivoting thought around, this is bad that I can't focus. Here's this thing that's coming up. Why not turn it around? And this is how they taught me. And like, oh, that needed to come up and be released.
Yes.
So if you can look at that way, in all sorts of things, even if you're in yoga. So I'm in yoga and now I start thinking about that thing and I start wobbling. Oh, okay, I need to release that. So now I can get solid again. It's a slight shift, but do you see where I'm going with that? Is like, okay, that's where everybody's like, I hate meditation. I can't do meditation because I always have these thoughts. Have the thought and let it go.
Right.
And have the thought, let it go. You know, get over it.
Right.
So some other ways that are really, really different. Again, think about the zone. I'm a big reader. And I can pick up a book. Now, normally I can't get in the zone if it's like a self-help book or something like that, because then sometimes you have like self-help book and you're reading it and yeah, I don't do that. Yeah, I don't do that. Yeah, I don't, you know what I mean? You can kind of get down on yourself with the self-help book.
I know.
Get ideas, but you can kind of be like, but I read novels all the time. And it's almost like you can get yourself in a hypnotic state. I remember when we were going to past life regression therapy training, we put clients in a hypnotic state, but it's not hypnotic like, okay, cluck like a chicken. It's not. We all put ourselves in a hypnotic state when we're in that zone. Somebody who's gardening, they're a little bit in that hypnotic state. Somebody who's reading a book, and that's one of the things, you read a book and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh my God, I've been here for an hour and a half. You were in that zone. Dancing, listening to some music.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if for me, music wouldn't work to really be in the zone unless I'm listening to like spa music, but it would work like we were talking about taking the walks.
Right.
Now I'm not thinking of bad stuff. I'm thinking of, oh, listen to the sound. Isn't it beautiful? And listen to these words. Aren't they great? And whatever. Dancing can be in the zone. you're, you know, every now and then, I don't know if you do this, but every now and then, if you've got music on and you're alone and you're in the kitchen and the best song in the world comes on,
I know.
"Wah," you know, and like start, you know, dancing all over the place. That's a Zen moment,
Right.
you know, where you're in that zone. What other things that, oh, we, remember when we worked with Karen Dendy Smith, Qigong,
Right.
moving meditation there. Um, so, you know, just a ton of different ways of being in that zone, but not having to do that sitting down thing.
Well, I did want to bring up just one thing about, and I kind of goes back to TM, but meditation in general. In the 70s, the late 70s, maybe, there's a doctor. I'm in Massachusetts. A doctor that was, I believe, from Harvard. Um, but anyway, but was in one of the Boston hospitals. And he set out to prove, I believe, that meditation really didn't do anything. There was a lot of hype around it. And his name is Herbert Benson, Dr. Herbert Benson. And he wrote a book. He wrote two books. I think one was in the late 70s, one might have been in the early 80s. And it was The Relaxation Response.
Oh my
And one was,
God, book.
yeah, Beyond the Relaxation Response.
Yes.
And when he set out on this journey to sort of disprove it, he was blown away. And he ended up traveling, I believe, the world. And he was able to measure see the changes that would happen and measure let's say, the benefits. So when
Yep.
I said I took that 10-week class, I believe I was the second one to go through his clinic back, it was probably 30 years ago. It was probably more than 31 years ago, maybe. And it was on this. And what he ended up doing, and it might still exist, it was this 10-week meditation, and every week was a different type. And then he started to, mine was, I think, honestly, I believe that mine was infertility. I think that was the group that I was in. But they ended up doing pain. They ended up doing infertility. They ended up doing cancer. I mean, they broke out the groups that way. And then they studied, like I had to give information back to the team, kind of where I was after having gone through it. And they studied the effects on all of these different issues, let's say, with meditation. And so he's huge. The books are old, but honestly, it's worth a read. It's
Yeah, and it's actually it's a quick read too. It's not
it's
a
a
big,
quick read.
thick book. It's interesting because when I was in college, it was my senior year of college. There was a lot of craziness going on in my world, and it was really funny because it's not funny, it's weird, but this is so for weeks, my hands were really tingly and my feet were really tingly, and around my mouth was really tingly. And it's like, what the hell? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is this? There was no physical, you know, damage. Like I didn't fall or I didn't do anything like that. So finally I went to a doctor because it was like, I'm having, you know, it was around finals and it was, you know, I gotta, what is this? What's going on or whatever? He prescribed me that book. He said, because what he said was that I was in such a stressed place that I was actually hyperventilating, but I wasn't hyperventilating like like you would think, but I was breathing so shallowly
Yeah.
to the stress that I literally was not taking in enough oxygen.
Yeah.
So my body was in fight or flight, like pulling into the organs. So I wasn't getting the oxygen or blood flow or whatever. I don't know why it was the mouth, but the extremities.
Yep.
So it was my hands, my feet, and around my mouth. He literally prescribed it. Thank God. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because there's a heck of a lot of doctors. Now, granted, this was years and years ago, 1986. Like, good Lord, I just dated myself bad. My senior year of college, but it could have been very easy for somebody to say, here, take this pill.
Right.
And he literally said, I want you to go to the bookstore and find this book.
Yeah.
And I started because it was all about breathing.
Yes.
And I wasn't even aware that I was breathing that way. But because of the stress, I guess I wasn't taking big, deep belly breaths.
Right.
I was breathing really, really shallowly for such a long time that's what it did to me. So that's great that you brought that up. That's so funny. And I still have the book. I still have the yellowed pages and all. It's really kind of thin.
Yep.
And it's an easy book and it's just a basic meditation kind of thing. That is hysterical.
I know.
And
It was awesome. It was an awesome book.
it was an awesome book and really, really, really solidifies how much it is about deep breathing.
Right.
And so that counting thing comes in wonderfully. Sometimes when I have trouble sleeping, I'll do the counting thing. I will start at 100 and I'll count on the breath all the way down to 1.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I'll find I rarely get there. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm breathing so deeply, 99, 98. You know, I'll get to 50 and then you're like 13. You
Yeah.
get like, because you're like so into it. That is so cool about that book. You should all run out and get that book.
Yeah, I definitely would. I definitely would do
Yeah.
that. So the one thing we haven't talked about, that is one of my favorite meditations, and they come in all different shapes and forms and whatever, is guided meditation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You can find them anywhere. You can find them on
Yeah.
YouTube. You can find them. Wayne Dyer does one. I was looking at one yesterday because I thought, maybe we should do a guided meditation. And I was just we were both kind of looking around, but it was like an hour or some. So some are like super long. Some are short. My husband actually there's an app called Calm.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yep, I looked
Yeah,
on.
and we have no affiliation with Calm, so we're not trying to get anybody to do that or whatever. But I guess in the app there's some freebies in there, or
Yep,
you can pay like a yearly subscription, and there's a ton of them. And some of them are literally like, I think, just listening to rain.
yep,
Some of them are guided, meditations, and all the big guys, the Wayne Wayne Dyer, Joe Dispenza, all the big law of attraction guys, and Abraham Hicks, who I listen to, they all have guided meditations. Again, we're not affiliated with Abraham Hicks at all, but I study them and I have a bunch of their stuff. They have a series of meditations for like categories, sort of like what you were talking about. Like there's one for just general well-being. There's one for financial well-being. There's one for uh, relationship, that kind of
yep.
thing, and health, well-being, that kind of thing. And what they do is, again, you're breathing in a very specific pattern while they're doing the talking. Now, those are just talking like law of attraction stuff, like life is well, you're doing really good, blah, blah, blah. So it does change your thought pattern. So if you go into it and you're like having a bad day and you're like, I'm hemorrhaging money or something like this, it can help shift you. But a lot of them are more physical, like think of your body right now is in this or in that. When we were in shaman school, we would do journeys. And it was always funny because we worked really hard in shaman school. We would start at like 8:30 in the morning. We'd go till like 10 o'clock at night. So if they were doing one in the evening, you had to make sure not to lie down, because if I lied down and we were journeying, and journey is like a guided meditation. Did we do that here or in Facebook Live? The animal,
We did Facebook Live, we did, yeah.
finding your animal, your power animal or your spiritual animal. That's a form of meditation.
Yeah.
That guided journey. So they're everywhere out there. Again, YouTube, Calm, Abraham Hicks, just,
I wanted to mention this book. I haven't read it. I've only read the reviews, and I am going to pick it up. But I do see this guy on TV. It's Dan Harris, and he's on, I want to say like the weekend of Good Morning America, and he's an anchor. And I saw him speak when he wrote this book, and apparently he actually had a panic attack on air. And
oh, I
he showed
saw
the clip.
that.
Yeah, he
I
showed.
remember that.
And so he ended up on this journey of meditation. I assume he didn't want to have to do medication. I don't remember, but and so he ended up writing a book that people rave about. And there is an app called, it's 10% Happier, I believe is the name of the book.
Totally
Dan
right.
Harris.
Yeah.
And he does have an app, which I do believe is paid for, but there's tons of information on there. So for people that may have trouble, in other places, you might want to look at that. I am going to pick up this book because.
And do you know if the book's about like that whole journey, like what happened to him?
Yes.
And that's what it is. It's about.
And
so
then how he overcame it, and he did overcome it. But meditation, I want to say when I saw him do that interview, he was like, meditation,
Yeah.
But he was desperate to find something, and meditation really was it for him because he has anxiety. So.
And there are a lot of people like, okay, so I have this past year with a lot of stuff going on, I've had, and not craziness in the world, I had, my cancer diagnosis, et cetera. There was a lot of anxiety. And I would get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm having an anxiety attack. I am having an anxiety attack, like he did on air that time. And now I know, okay, I know what to do. And I know I'm going to breathe my way through. I'm going to own what I'm feeling right now. And I'm going to breathe my way through this. And the only reason I say that again is because the breath, breath and meditation is, it's so, so, so huge. And it's funny you said this guy, there are so many big wigs, big, celebrities, personalities, whatever, that meditate every single day. George Stephanopoulos gets up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and does TM. Jerry Seinfeld
Yep.
gets up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, does TM. And again, we're not pushing TM or anything, just a type of meditation.
Right.
And they have felt that they'll be the first ones to tell you it changes your life.
Yep.
It changes your life. I try to meditate in the morning. I was really, really very ritualistic. I would do that every single morning, meditate, and then working on fatigue and stuff. It's not like sometimes I won't be able to wake myself up in time, so I can't do that, but I do get it in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And you'll look at things like people that have Apple Watches. There's a thing on your Apple Watch that every so often you get ding 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 and it'll say breathe.
Yes.
It reminds you to breathe. My
Yep.
point in saying all this is a big thing.
Right.
And big, we're realizing as a human species, it's a big thing, and we need this because of the stress that is in our lives, and because and have you noticed that? I'll notice that sometimes when I'm sitting at my computer or whatever, and the next thing I know, my shoulders are like up on my ears, and all of a sudden I just go, and like, oh my God,
Yep.
I didn't even know how stressed I was. And then I will close my eyes and I will take big, big, big belly breaths. When we say belly breaths, that means like, not breathing shallowly, like I was talking about. I'm breathing in really, really deeply, and I'm pushing my belly out. Like I'm filling the whole torso with air. And then I'm exhaling, start from the bottom up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's almost like when I used to teach yoga, I used to teach people to breathe that way. Bring it in and feel like the air is filling up a vase, so from the bottom up,
Yep.
so it goes your belly, you puff out your belly, and then your rib cage, and then your upper chest. And then as you blow out, you empty it the exact opposite. So
And when I'm doing that too, teaching that or walking somebody through that, I always say, put your hand on your belly.
exactly.
Make sure you can feel that it is expanding and contracting.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So yeah, any other types of, I guess it's just the whole point of this is it doesn't have to be that thing. It's okay if thoughts come in.
Yep.
Just push them away or allow the good thoughts to come in. It's getting yourself in the zone. It's very, 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 very connected to the breath. But again, you can breathe on every third step or breathe on, or you know what I mean? It's about being present, and it is about letting go of control for a brief period of time. But it can be all of these things.
Right.
And more. And the important piece is to do it the way that works for you, as opposed to the way that somebody tells you to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now that said, I'm not going to say if somebody sits there and tries to do like meditation, you're, sitting there, eyes are closed, your hands are in a mudra, and you're like, whatever. If you're like, okay, I gave it 30 seconds and it didn't work, well, give it a little longer. You know what I mean? You gotta give it, a chance, but you may find that that's not for you. You may find that counting is, or whatever. I also try to, when I do meditation, I try to do 20 minutes. You don't just sit down and do 20 minutes. God, some people do hours. You don't just sit down and do 20 minutes, do 5 minutes.
Right.
Do 10 minutes, work your way up to 15 or 20 minutes. The other thing that I like to tell people is that if I'm in a meditation sometimes, I may be in a 20 meditation and 2 minutes of that meditation were Zen-like. Okay, I got 2 minutes.
Right.
I'm not going to beat myself up. I tried to do it.
Well, here's what happens. I think the better, let's say, the more practiced you are at it, and then you feel the benefit, then you want to do it.
And you want to do it.
It's like building a muscle. Like we talk about building the psychic muscle, right? I mean, is just repeating it and repeating it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Ginger, when do you use meditation?
I am probably more later afternoon or early evening. Only because of, we're homeschooling, not homeschooling, but we're remote learning. So it's
Yeah.
difficult earlier in the morning. So kind of whenever I can. And honestly, sometimes it's not that type of meditation. It's just what you said. I'm knitting,
Right.
I'm reading, or walking. I do try to walk. I try to walk every day. It doesn't happen. And we're in Massachusetts and it's flipping cold out. But
Yeah.
if I could do 3 or 4 days a week, and sometimes I put headphones on and it's music. Sometimes I put headphones on and I'm listening to an audiobook.
Yeah.
But I'm physically moving my body, and it works for me.
And
So
I think one of the things that if you can try to do some type of meditative exercise, we'll call it, and I don't mean exercise, some type of meditative practice every day, you are going to see and feel a difference.
yes, no
You're
question.
absolutely going to feel that difference. I think, Ginger, you and I also do a little bit. I know I do. I'm pretty sure you do. Like right before a session, right
Yes,
before a reading. I'm not going to do 20 minutes of a meditation right before a reading, but the 5 minutes before a reading, I have a ritual.
I do
You know what
too.
I mean? And part of that is eyes are closed, and I am managing my energy by usually breathing. And just whether I'm doing that 9 count or that 4 and 4 hold count, or or just big deep belly breaths, or whether I'm saying my mantra or whatever. There's a good 5 minutes before each reading where I'm doing some sort of meditative practice so that I am clear for that reading. You know what I mean? I mean, it just,
I do the same thing, and I'm very much into belly breathing because that brings me the most,
yeah,
the quickest way to that zone. But I do have this practice that I've been doing for a long time, which may sound crazy, but I said I like to be outside. I like to be connected. So I do a lot of readings from my sunroom, which faces conservation land. There's nothing behind me but conservation land. So, and it's all windows. So I typically am looking out the window and I visualize, I'm going to say my essence. I'm going to visualize my essence leaving my body and up in the sky, and I can picture myself flying and moving. I can feel like all of what's hanging on me gets shaken out. Like that's my picture.
so cool.
Anything that doesn't belong to me shakes out and I'm moving. I can feel, for me, I like the warmth. I'm in the clouds. I'm moving, and it's only a minute.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I picture my essence coming back in, all of myself, nothing else that's attached to me,
yeah.
and sort of cleaned out, and it feels good to me, and it's just
And
something.
that's such a perfect thing to do, like for everybody, that you're at your desk and you're feeling all this stress and the phone's ringing on, whatever. It's a minute.
Right.
It's a minute. But when you start to do little things like that and it's a minute, you're going to start to crave it.
Yes, you
More
do.
and more and more and more and more.
Yep.
To see that. So we hope you. So I want to do I want to give you a little bit of a. Let's do a little bit of an example. I'm not going to give. We're not going to do like a meditation or whatever. I'm just going to give you another example of what you could do. And I do this sometimes when I'm trying to sleep. So if you're driving your car listening to this, don't try to do it. Don't close your eyes and like whatever. But you could do this lying down. You could do this in your chair. You could do it before you go to bed. You could do it, at lunchtime or something. It's a very relaxing kind of thing. So for me, what I do is I will, sit in a comfy chair, or again, if I'm looking to go to sleep or something, maybe I'll lie down. But you can sit in the comfy chair, and a lot of people say feet on the ground, so you're grounded. I am not comfortable in like a regular chair with my feet on the ground. My legs have to be like under me, or they have to be up on something. So I don't pay too much attention to that. That's me. What you need to do is be comfortable. And I do close my eyes and I take those big, deep, deep, deep belly breaths in and out and in and out. And I start at my head. And I think about my head and I think about my brain and I think about the physical mass like inside my head. And I feel, oh God, that's really cramped in there. I'm going to let that go. And I envision everything that's in my brain just kind of bloop, 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 like kind of floating away. And I spend, a minute or so on that. And then I come down a little bit lower and I focus on my eyes. You know, am I squinting? Do I have the 11s between the eyes? Am I like really kind of in that focus mode in my face? And I like, oh God, let that go. And I'll focus on that for a little bit. I'll come down to my mouth. Your mouth can get, you may be clenching, you may be, gritting your teeth or something like that. I focus on that and I let that go. And I move my way down my body, my shoulders, upper shoulders. Like I said before, you all of a sudden you realize your shoulders are up by your ears, like, and I let that go. And I'll just, again, move my way down the body. And I'll name those parts. And my eyes are closed and like, okay, my biceps, am I clenching my arms? Am I holding on to stuff? And I'll be like, physically, okay, focusing on biceps, letting those go. Okay, focusing on hands. Are my hands clenched? Or can I just let them open up? How about my chest? Focusing on my chest, focusing on my chest. How about my belly, focusing on my belly. And I obviously I'm going quickly down it. But I would be spending, sometimes I'll be spending, 3 minutes around my eyes or my mouth or my throat. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm not really feeling much tension there. So that's good. And I'll let that go and I'll move on to the next thing. The point is, as you're breathing, big, deep belly breaths, you're moving your way down your body from top to bottom, noticing what's there and letting it go. That's the piece, noticing what's there, letting it go. And it all goes back to what Ginger keeps saying about being present, being in the moment. We often are just go through our day so quickly that we don't even realize that those shoulders are really tight. We don't even realize that we're breathing really shallowly. We don't even realize that our stomach is in a knot. We don't realize that our, thighs hurt because we're clenching them or whatever. We don't even realize it. So you get your breathing in, you're aware of how your body is feeling. And if it is feeling poorly or clenchy or whatever, you're letting it go. And you go all the way down to your feet. And you just take your time, however long it needs to be for you. And you're at the bottom of your feet and you take those few breaths and, open your eyes and you'll be amazed at what you found and how it feels now. So that's one of the things that I would like to leave you with, even if it's just that, try that. That can be,
I think to your point, any kind of a practice on a regular basis, if you think of it in the same way you think, I take my multivitamin, I
yeah,
make sure I eat fruits and veggies, I'm watching, that kind of thing, whatever the self-care, if you think of that in self-care, and a lot of people say, I'm too busy, but you're not too busy to take 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes twice a day. Honestly, once you feel the benefit of it, you just cannot help yourself
you
by
can't help yourself from doing
expanding.
it. And it's funny because you're like, okay, that thing about being too busy. I used to say that too. I'm too busy. I don't have 20 minutes. I don't have 20 minutes.
Right.
But when you start meditating, things in your mind and things in your body shift. So you're actually more efficient.
Yes.
So you do have that 20 minutes. I know that sounds weird. But like we've said, all those people, George Stephanopoulos and Dan Harris and like they wouldn't give it up for anything in the world.
Right.
Like they would give up something else before they would give up their meditative practice.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the same thing for me, like yoga is part of my meditative practice. I wouldn't give that up for anything in the world. Because after I'm done, I'm like, oh my God,
Right.
wow. Do you know what I mean?
needed
Same
that.
thing with like 10 or 20 minutes of just TM or belly breathing. It's
Right.
the same thing. So any last words from you, Ginger?
No, I just think again, whatever works for you, not to be tied to one particular way, or even if you start to get into a practice, maybe every day isn't a TM type meditation. Maybe it is a walking or a guided, or just find what works. I mean, you deserve it. You deserve that as part of your health care.
And it doesn't matter that somebody else is saying, oh, you should do this type of meditation. This is
Right.
the only one that works. No, that's not the case. What Ginger said, what works for you? What are you able to stick with? What brings you joy? What makes you feel a difference? So try some different ones. And it doesn't have to be the same one every single day. Like I said, sometimes I'll do TM, sometimes I can yoga or whatever. It's that breathing thing. So do yourself the favor and just find something, find something and do it. So we hope that helped, because again, when you say meditation, people are like, run for the hills meditation. So hard, I can't do it. There are other things that are meditative. So thank you guys all so much for listening. As always, you can find us on our website, thepsychicwise.com. You can find us on our individual websites, which are on thepsychicwise.com. You can find us from there. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. And we are going to go back to YouTube. So we will be uploading things to our YouTube channel there. And again, it's just The Psychic Wives. We're also going to be doing more Facebook Lives. We've committed to do a Facebook Live every month. So please, please, please follow us on our Facebook page, just at The Psychic Wives, where you will see when we have an event coming up, or live readings, or we have some guests that are coming on to both the podcast, but then also the Facebook Live. So definitely pay attention to that so you can see when those things are coming. We may have some other fun things coming up too.
Well, book club, right? We talked
Book
about.
club. Oh my gosh, book club. Yes. We are going to be making the decision soon for the book club. And I guess at this point, since it's the 11th, we'll probably pick a book for February. And then we will do, I think we're going to do a webinar Zoom kind of thing, so we can all be on here and we can all discuss the book. And of course, the book is going to be something, energetically or spiritual, or some sort of great modality or something like that. Come to think of it, we should probably add that Dan Harris book to the book club.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be really, really super good. So we'll be posting in the Facebook group about all that stuff. So it's all coming up. So please, please, please hook up with us there. And also always feel free to, if you have any ideas or topics that you want us to cover, or books that you want us to do, please head over there and reach out to us via that Facebook page, and we will get to you. So thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Thank
and we
you.
will see you next time.
Bye.